Hello and welcome back to the videos based on the EDEXCEL GCSE drama component 3, which is the written paper. As of this time, 2020, is titled Theatre Makers in Practice. We are moving on from section A. Please look at the other videos that I've uploaded. We will be covering all the questions in the GCSE exam. Today we're focusing on section B, question 1, and the questions focus on the role of the director. The questions are worth 9 marks. We look at what the specific choices in this extract. Now in this extract, the extract you have studied at school, the extract you're answering the exam questions on, it may well be the Crucible, but in this case I'm focusing on inspector calls. However, the questions have the same link, the same formula, the same style, just different players. So if you are studying a different text, I can make a video on a different text if you want me to, but it is the same setup. So we're asked questions on a director. As a director, discuss how you would use one of the production elements below to bring this extract to life for your audience. You should refer to the context in which the text was created and first performed. Choose one of the following. Now before we look at one of the following, let's look at this question. So it's asking you specifically, director. You're not an actor, you're a director. There is a difference between acting and directing, and that is one of the things your marker, your examiner will be looking for. Can you show the difference between director, actor, even designer? So what is the role of a director? How do you write as a director? We will look at that in a few moments. Discuss how you would use one of the production elements below. So it's going to give us a list of production elements, and we must choose one to bring the extract to life for your audience. You should refer to the context. Context is your social, your historical, your cultural context, what was going on at the time. So we need to do some revision and we need to add context into our answers. Context, so if we're looking at inspector calls, what did Priestley want to show? So when Priestley, for example, talks about the inspector, Priestley is sending his message through the eyes of the inspector, the message about social equality, the need to treat people equally. We're talking context. So we are given a list of 3 choices. Choices could be, we could talk about costume, staging, props, stage furniture, set, lighting, sound, production elements, elements that we use on stage to help a production. So how would we do that? Now, staging is in bold. I would recommend we always stay away from staging. Staging is a very hard topic. What is staging? Is staging the entrances and exits where we put our doorways? Is staging where the characters stand? I think it's a pretty hard topic to talk about. A few of my students in the past have been adamant to use staging and have done a very good job. However, it is not my forte, so I would stay away from it. I think there's a few loopholes with staging. Say no more. It's personal choice. Right, question specifics. The question asks you to write about directing on one specific element. You choose one. You're given a choice of 3: lighting, sound, props, furniture, set, stage, costume, sound. There will be any 3 out of that list in the paper. You are given 3, you must choose one. So it is advisable you don't just do lots of revision on sound and you become an expert on sound and diegetic and non-diegetic sound. Lighting, you can talk about moving gobos and parkans and spotlights and soft edge spotlights, etc. We need to be able to talk about a few different skills, especially if there is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 skills. I've counted quickly there. There's only going to be 3 on the paper. Answers must be clearly linked to the extract. You will be given the extract, you must link to the extract. So use quotes, use moments from the extract. A total of 9 marks is available for this question. Context. So we've mentioned the context. Question requires you to show understanding of the context in which the play was first written, performed. So in the Crucible we could talk about the strong belief in the unjust persecution. Inspector calls, we could talk about at the time there was a need for change for the younger generations, moving away from capitalism forward into a socialism. As a director, Personally, I think it's how we use the personal pronouns. The pronoun I is important. I would use lighting to bring the scene to life. I would like to emphasize the wealth of the family through the use of costume. So I am the director, not he would, she would, you would, I would. I would ask. Your examiner will be looking to see if you are clearly writing as a director, not an actor. A few of the skills now. Costume can be used to highlight time period of the play. It can be representational of the character. The Burlings are wealthy and middle class. How can costume reflect this? And contrast could be used to show the inspectors a different class and status. What I would recommend for costume is do your research. There were specific names for certain hats that people wore. There were specific names for different types of clothing. Do your research. It's enjoyable. Research the time period. Find out information. Find out new names of hats, coats, shoes, gloves. Staging. Although I've said stay away from staging. Entrances and exits. Awareness of the audience and create an appropriate space for the performance and the audience. Think about your sight lines. How you might use a cross-section of a house. Is it a complete living room? Don't answer the question using staging. You can, that's just what I think. Props and stage furniture. Reference to props within the space and the personal props is appropriate to help indicate character, time period, location, symbolic meaning even. The inspector might have a notebook. What might you have appropriate for living rooms and stage furniture to show wealth? Remember, if you're talking about props and stage furniture, you might say I would have a magnificent glass chandelier hanging from the ceiling down onto the stage. Remember, it's a theatre performance. What theatres can afford a huge glass, expensive chandelier? So in the wording, I would recommend I would have a prop that looks or resembles a glass chandelier. Be very careful on your wording. Still have what looks great, but acknowledge the fact we haven't got £1 million budget, so props would resemble. The audience should be central to the response, and reference should be made to the context in which the text was created, class differences, social responsibility and ethics, post-war social comments to show change in society, to move focus on welfare of others. That sounds quite a mouthful, quite complicated. Again, do your research. Look at what was the social responsibility, what did Priestley want to show. I will, no doubt, upload a video where we look at the context of inspector calls. So, a few descriptions. For a level 1 and 3, the main word is limited. Response is limited. Mainly narrative. Narrative means you're telling the story, you're stating fact, but you're not really analysing and evaluating. Examples are underdeveloped. I would have a grandfather clock. I would have a table with nice expensive things on it. That's underdeveloped. We need more detail. Context is basic. Priestley wanted to show society, we all need to be together. It's very short sentences, very abrupt. We need to have more detail. When we move up to the level 4s and 6, we can tell you've done your research. We know you know what you're talking about. So response is competent, demonstrating appropriate and balanced knowledge. It's clearly expressed, developed. So you're saying what are you going to do and why are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? What, how, why? And then we move up to the higher levels, the level 3. It's assured, it's coherent, it's well developed, it's embedded throughout. You've thought about it, you've done your revision. Know what you're talking about before you go in the exam. You know you are going to be asked questions on Section 8, an actor, a designer, a director. If you're doing inspector calls, I think it's an excellent choice. Inspector calls is set in one location, in the living room, the Burlings living room. If you were doing other plays, how many different scenes have you got? What in the extract for inspector calls, you know the scene is going to be the living room. So you don't have to, you can kind of go in the exam and you know exactly how you are going to design that. The characters, what they're going to wear. The characters don't change costumes. The time doesn't change much. It's an evening, it's a dinner time. So an example. So if I decided to talk about a director of lighting, if we just read through, this is how I might answer it. As a director, I would use lighting to bring the scene to life. Straight away, I'm addressing the question. Whoever's marking my work, whether it be the teacher or your examiner, your marker, straight away, I'm answering this question on lighting. I would start the scene with a general wash. Lighting. But as the dinner party commences, I would gently add tones of blue. A light blue wash shows it is early evening. Also, blue symbolises capitalism, which Priestley is wanting the audience to see through the inclusion of the Berlin family's dinner party. On certain lines, quote, unquote, embed the quotes in there, I would use the lighting and have a flashing bright white light burst through the windows as if it is lighting outside. A storm is coming. This would foreshadow the arrival of the inspector and that trouble is on its way. When the inspector arrives, I would also use a floodlight downstage on the floor to silhouette the inspector as a large shadow projected on the flats. So look at the key words I'm using there. The red are all key terminology. General wash, tones of blue, flashing bright white light, floodlight, projected on the flats. I've talked about the context of what Priestley wanted to show. When the inspector, I would also use a floodlight, keyword floodlight, to create a silhouette of the inspector as a large shadow, so we can really see as a director what visions, what images I want to create and why. We talk about the colour blue. Blue is a colour that we link with capitalism. Priestley is wanting the audience to know the Berlings are the capitalist family. Mr. Berling symbolises capitalism, so having a bit of a blue light within that general wash, tones of blue there, we just add that little hint of knowledge, that little hint of understanding. Another example. When Sheila speaks the line, quote, I would want a soft-edged spotlight to focus the audience's whole attention on her. Remember, the focus is for the audience. As a director, we are creating a play, we are creating a show for an audience. So we always add the word audience. What do we want? The audience. The spotlight with a soft edge is showing her changing attitude and increased empathy on the softer side. A soft edge spotlight on stage, it shows that warm, softer, empathetic side. If we want an angry scene on a character, we might use a hard edge spotlight. Again, it's knowledge of the lighting and it's knowledge of the play. A warm yellow light flooding the stage as the inspector leaves, showing the audience the inspector has left and the potential of a brighter future. Change is possible, moving forward from the conceited capitalist. The blue lights at the start to the warmer orange lights at the end. And then I might talk about the context of the play again, about Priestley's message that the future, the younger generation, represent a warmer, brighter future. We could show that with lights. So from the blue lights at the beginning to the warmer orange lights at the end.